Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining our webcast today. My name is Sinead Gleason, Senior Product Manager here at Equifax Canada, and today I'll be walking you through a new product suite that we've developed in response to the new guidelines for the Proceeds of Crime, Money Laundering, and Financing Terrorism Act, known as PCML-FTA. Let's get started. During this webcast, we will go through an overview of AML Assist product suite, its unique features, and some key reminders for lenders to prepare you for the compliance deadline. In June of 2016, the Department of Finance and FinTrack released an update to the PCML-FTA guidelines. Some of the changes to the regulations were very specific to the use of credit files as a source for identity verification for anti-money laundering compliance, which I will refer to as AML compliance. There is a one-year grace period between when the new guidelines were published and when reporting entities need to ensure compliance with the new regulations, and that deadline is June 30th, 2017. As mentioned, Equifax has developed a new suite of products in response to the new guidelines, specific to the use of a credit file for AML compliance purposes. Specifically, we have created a single source solution, a dual source solution, and a decisioning model as well to aid you in your compliance strategies. In the next few slides, I will explain how inquiry transactions can flow between the solutions, followed by a deeper explanation of each one. One of the questions we received quite often in the early stages of product development from lenders was, does Equifax have a sense of how many credit files will need to pass through to a dual source method of verification? Or for that matter, even how many will only require a single source method? Based on simply just looking at the age of the credit file alone, we anticipate approximately 75% of transactions will be satisfied by the single source method. Roughly 13% of all credit files in the Equifax database are less than 3 years old. And as defined within the regulations, a credit file can only be used as the single source of verification for consumers whose credit file is at least 3 years old. If the file is younger than that, then the credit file alone does not suffice for verifying identity. Inquiries on credit files that are less than 3 years old would not be satisfied by using the credit file as the single source method and would therefore need to pass through to a dual source process. Equifax has enabled AML Assist so that each service can be activated as a standalone process, enabling the end user to determine when either a dual or single source transaction will be triggered. Alternatively, Equifax can streamline that process on your behalf and automatically waterfall from the single source filter into the dual source filter, should you wish. So you might be wondering what exactly the difference is between the single source and dual source methods. In the next couple of slides, I will walk you through each solution in more detail. As mentioned earlier, a credit file can be used as a single source of verification for the purposes of AML compliance under the following conditions. The credit file must be from Canada, it must be in existence for 3 years or more, and the application must match on the name, address, and date of birth. If all of these elements are satisfied, then reporting entities may use the credit file as their evidence of verification. There are some record-keeping obligations that reporting entities must adhere to. You must have a record of the client's name, the name of the bureau holding the credit file, a reference number for the file, and the date that you consulted or searched for that file. If all of those conditions are met and you have your record-keeping elements ready, then you're good to go. However, if the single source criteria is not met, a dual source method must be used. The dual source method, as outlined in the guidelines, must be used if the credit file is less than 3 years old or does not meet the other single source method criteria. The guidelines describe the dual process method as referring to information from reliable and independent sources. The information may be found in documents from these sources, or may be information that these sources are able to provide. It's important to note that a credit file itself is not a source of information. A Canadian credit bureau is a curator and amalgamator of source data. We receive the data reported on a credit file direct from financial institutions and other credit reporting entities. And as such, it's the information that we receive that is the source. The dual source process within AML Assist has been developed to retrieve information right from that source data. The credit file can be used in combination with other source data so long as that credit file has existed for at least 6 months. So with an understanding of the two specific single and dual source requirements in mind, Equifax worked directly with the Department of Finance and FinTrack to ensure that our product offering aligned with the guidelines' intent and expectations. AML Assist was designed to ensure compliance with the new regulations, provides detailed data as required in the guidelines direct from reliable sources of information, provides you with the insights you need to execute actionable results in your AML compliance strategies, and all the information that is required as part of your record-keeping obligations. So let's dig into the details and look at the specifics within AML Assist. Let's use John Smith as an example. John is looking to open an account with you, and you've never done business with him before. How does AML Assist help you ascertain his identity? John told you he lives at 123 Main Street in Toronto and was born on January 1st, 1960. You will initiate a credit file search on John. Your input criteria is John Smith, 123 Main Street, Toronto, date of birth being January 1, 1960. You'll receive match results back on each of the elements within name, address, and date of birth. You could receive an exact match, a partial match, or a no match on any of those elements, depending on what was listed on the credit file. It's possible that John has recently moved. Equifax will also provide whether or not the address provided was found in a former address that we have on record, keeping in mind that John's requested address must be his current address in order to pass AML compliance requirements. Having visibility to former addresses provides a deeper level of insight on John that may be helpful for other purposes, such as fraud mitigation, or may even trigger you to request that John come into your place of business to provide current hard copies of his address. And while it is not directly stated as required in the guidelines, we've also had enough requests from the market to include details about how robust John's credit file is. So AML Assist can also return the number of trades on his file and the date of the oldest trade opened. This allows for further screening. You might want to treat someone with a very thin file differently than someone who has a long-established and robust credit file. Also available is the unique ID of the credit file to assist you with your record keeping. For those customers you're dealing with whose credit file is less than 3 years old, you will need to use a dual process method of identity verification. You can use the credit file in conjunction with another independent and reliable source, or opt to omit using the credit file in favor of using 2 independent and reliable sources of information. You might be wondering what exactly constitutes a reliable source of information. We have consulted with FinTrack and the Department of Finance to gain clarity on this question as it relates to the data that Equifax is able to provide. This resulted in the development of a new data repository where we collect the data supplied to Equifax from financial institutions for the purposes of AML compliance. We go direct to the source in order to provide match results on name, address, and date of birth for each trade item submission supplied to us. You are required to match name and date of birth from one source, name and address from another, or name and account number from another. 2 of these 3 scenarios must match to the information supplied in your search criteria. Account numbers from those items are supplied as part of the source identifier number for record keeping, as well as the open or closed status of each trade item to ensure you are using current information. And finally, Equifax has developed 2 decisioning models for you to choose from to further streamline your compliance processes. These models will provide you with a pass or fail result depending on the level of match detail returned with the inquiry. The first model is a more strict one, relying primarily on some exact match results in order to generate a pass. The second model is more flexible, whereby it uses some partial match results to generate a pass. For example, if you only input the middle initial of John Smith's name and not the full name, you will receive a partial match on middle name. John P. Smith is still very likely John Patrick Smith. It all depends on your risk appetite. Well, that wraps up the details of the AML Assist solution. As mentioned, the solution has been developed to enable a degree of flexibility on how you wish to execute the single and dual process methods. And it also provides that final decision criteria should you wish to use that as well. Streamlining our processes to ensure smooth execution within yours is important. At Equifax, we are focused on being your trusted AML compliance partners. And before we wrap up, I will leave you with some final reminders as you get ready for the June 30th compliance deadline. So remember, the deadline for compliance with the new regulations is June 30th, 2017. Further details about the newly published guidelines can be found online and referenced here in this URL. Simply go to FINTRAC's website under the Publications tab and select the Guidelines link, where you will find the specific details for methods to ascertain the identity of individual clients, shown on your screen here. AML Assist is available as a standalone product with no touch on the credit file with our dual source product offering. If you want to learn more about how AML Assist can help your organization prepare for the compliance deadline, contact your Equifax representative. Thank you for joining our webcast.